Now, for the European Union, some of these people are insufferable. You need to control yourself not to explode. So shallow, so egocentric, so wrong, but they think they know everything, broadcast their ignorance all over the place. But they should calm down, because this is a wrong battleground for them.
Today, we as European Parliament say clearly, we stand with Bobi Wine, Uganda's opposition and civil society, and all those who risk everything to demand freedom.
Kituufu, Jeno Yoweri Kaguta Tibahaburwa yerangirira nti yawangula akalulu k'omwaka 2026 akakubibwanga 15 Januari ng'akaka akulembera akakiiko k'ebyokulonda kyamani wako byabakama. Naye okulangirirwa kwa mwami Yoweri Kaguta Tibahaburwa tekimufuula legitimate president wa Uganda. Bwe bibanga ebitongole amawanga Uganda gekolagana nago era ge yayingira nago omukago gamukubyemu ebituli. Confirmed beyond doubt, mu EU Parliament oba giyite European Union Parliament nga muno mwe muli amawanga ag'enjawulo omuli Italy, Germany n'amawanga amalala mangi. Nkunokoledde yago kubanga government ya Uganda gebadde ngeetera okutuula nago mu kafubo era nga geetera okukolagana nago. Mu Parliament eyo ku babaka abatudde olunaku lwa leero 573 ababaka 514 ku bo be babadde bakalonda nga bagamba nti akalulu ka Uganda nga batunuulira ebyo ebyalimu effujjo eryakolebwa amaanyi g'emmundu agaalabwa obubbi obw'akalulu obweyolekera mu kalulu ako 514 ku bantu 573 bagambye nti akalulu kano kali null and void. Era bo ne bagamba nti bayimirira wamu ne Robert Kyagulanyi Bobi Wine mu ebyo ebyava mu kalulu aka 2026 nga 15 Januari. Eno nno ntandikwa ey'olutalo oba olutabaalo lwe twayogerako gye buvuddeko nti Generali Yoweri Kaguta Tibahaburwa agenda kufuna emitawaana mingi naddala okuva ebweru w'eggwanga, okuva mu mawanga ag'ebunaayira. Ffe wano Uganda kyandimwanguyira okutumanipulatinga n'okumanipulatinga ebitongole ebyenjawulo naye kyandikalubamu okufuuka legitimate. Bwe bakuggyako enkola ey'omuntu ali legitimate oba tokyayina ngeri gy'ogenda kutulamu deal mu bintu ebyenjawulo omuli trade, deal ey'ebyokwerinda, deal eya ammunition n'ebintu ebirala n'amawanga ago agaba gaawukanye naawe. Leero tuli ku European Union Parliament gye nabagambye nti ebadde erwana olutalo lunene nnyo naffe bannayuganda kubanga America ne UK bye babadde bakola kwogatta ne Canada, European Union Parliament ye ebadde ebikola kifuula nnenge. America webadde ng'ejjeeteeka envumbo ku bantu ab'enjawulo omuli Amongo n'abalala, European Union ebadde ekolagana nabo butereevu. Kati we twogerera nayo evudde mu mwami Yoweri Kaguta Tibahaburwa. Kyekiri kye twayogeddeko nti bino byonna bye mulaba aleeta abamu ku bantu ababadde ku ludda oluvuganya naye nga bamukolera atule nabo mu kafubo. Ali mu kunoonya mpenda wafuuka legitimate, afune recognition okuva mu mawanga ag'ebulaaya. Nja kukyogera kati ng'omukunjagula essowaani nti yakulirako bantu beeka nti Generali Yoweri Kaguta Tibahaburwa European Union Parliament emumye legitimacy. Kati bwe banga European Union Parliament egimumye nga ebimu ku bitebe bya America oba abakungu mu America nabo bagimumye ate nga America mukimanyi bulungi nti ekolagana bulungi ne UK nga ekituuka mu America ku ggwanga lyonna eriri ku lukalu lwa Africa ne UK automatically begenda kikolerawo kyekimu n'ekituuka mu UK nga America tenna kikola ate Canada yo eriwo goberera. Kati wetwogerera bakirimaanyi ba mirundi ebiri oba ena, ba mirundi ena bamye General Yoweri Kaguta tibahabulwa legitimacy. Era kakati nga bwe yaddukira mu mukago ogwa BRIC yandibanga eyo yokka gyabulayo okwerwanako. Naye njagala tutunuulira omukago guno ogwa BRIC n'ababadde bakolagana nagwo engeri gye gubayambyemu. Nja kuwa ekyokulabirako ekya gavumenti y'obwannakyemalira ebadde ekulembera omukulu Bashar eyavuunikibwa mu mwaka ogwa 2025. Ekyamaanyi kye baamukolera kwe kumuwa ennyonyi ennwanyi namunkanga emugye mu ggwanga lyali afuga, bw'etyo emutwale mu Russia afune obubudamu. Bw'abanga Bashar eyafuga emyaka 40 eyadda mu bigere bya kitaawe nga n'omutabani abadde alindirira okudda mu bigere bya kitaawe, Russia kye yamukolera ekyebbeeyi kwe kumuleetera ennyonyi okumuflyinga out of the country. Olwo General Yoweri Kaguta ati bahabulwa abadde tannabala kulekawo omukululo gwa mutabani we okukwata entebe. Awo mu ngeri ennyangu nja kugamba nti Uganda erabika eyolekedde omutendera ogw'okwenunula naddala mukadde kano nga Generali ammiddwa kyabadde ayayaanira wakati mu kuyita mu bantu ab'enjawulo, wakati mu kuyita mu bitongole eby'enjawulo. Bano bammawo be mubadde muwulira nga gyagamba nti bagende banegotiating ne NUP eyingire iPod, omukago ogutabaganya ebibiina eby'enjawulo. Intention yali emu yokka, kufuuka legitimate. Bano ba Lukwago be mubadde muwulira nga bagamba nti walina okubeerawo dialogue, babadde tebatuula oba kwogera bigambo ebyo olw'okuba nti baagala nnyo. Nedda babadde balubirira mu kimu kufuula mukama waabwe omukulu ali legitimate akulembera eggwanga lino. Bino byonna wenjogerera European Union Parliament ebijabuludde. Baba nga abaka 514 bonna bagambye nti nedda akalulu tekatambula bulungi, naddala kutandikira ku internet kugibwako n'ebigambo biba referringako ennyo bye bya mutabani w'omumpembe byabadde nga gyateeka ku mikutu emigatta abantu. Wano we bagambidde nti ebyava byonna mu kalulu 514 twaligambye nti kale 10 ne 514, only 3 people voted that the election of Uganda was free and fair. Ku bantu 5 ensanvumu abatuula mu Parliament ya European Union 514 abagambye nedda, ate abalala 3 bokka ne bagamba nti bo bawagira ebyo ebyava mu kulonda. Njagala ojjukire nti European Union ya forwarding aba election observer mu Uganda balondoole ebyali bivudde mu kalulu. Kati bwabanga bwe bati boogedde mukimanye nti kaweddemu dda. Yenna aloga omukulu ali ku muti omuwafu amulengera kuba muwanvu, yonna jadda amwekenneenyaako n'amugamba akaliro kawulira energy ogifiiringa. Kati nno naffe mu kanyomero ke kamu njagala okugumya abo ababadde baweddemu amaanyi nti bwebanga European Union Parliament ebadde yatukuba omugongo ebbanga lyonna naye yimukiddemu negamba nti nedda, mu butuufu newankubadde nga twefuula abatalaba ku mulundi guno ekiri e Uganda nedda kyayitiridde, nayo negamba nti tuwakanya ebyo ebyava mu kulonda. Awo omanya nti twolekedde olugendo olulungi mu lutabaalo lwe tubadde tutambula. Njagala kutandika n'akatambi kano tulabe ebibadde mu Parliament eno. Voting ebadde etya, okulonda kubadde kutya, baani abagambye nti ye, baani abagambye nti nedda akalulu kano kaali free and fair. Akatambi nkayina wetwogerera Parliament ekyeyongera okwogera n'okubaganya empawa ku Uganda, naye nga obubonero bwonna bulaga nti EU eyolekedde nate okuteekawo embeera etali ya bulijjo nga bagamba nti bo ebyava mu kulonda babiganye. Kino kirekawa Generali Yoweri Kaguta tibahabulwa. Katufune obutambi buno briefly bubiri tuliokate tukomewo tweyongereyo mpola mpola.
Let's move on to the votes. Joint motion for a resolution from
Yes.
5 groups on the post-electoral situation in Uganda and threats against the opposition leader Bobi Wine.
Thank you.
Amendment 1.
Yes, comrades, the vote is happening. You see
The vote is
them
closed.
voting.
Vote on the resolution is a whole roll call vote. The vote's open.
The whole resolution.
Vote's closed.
Show it.
And
Look at that, 514 in favor and only 3 against. Thank you so much, European Parliament.
Kati nno eri munnayuganda yenna eyali awakanya okugendanga kwa Bobi Wine ebweru w'eggwanga nkiwa otegedde lwaki yalinga atendidde eggendo okwolekera e Bulaaya oba e Bunaayira. Ebibala bingi ebivuddeyo era bino bye bimu ku byo oba oliawo byogwana okulabika nti gwe munnayuganda omanyako. Kati kiri confirmed beyond doubt, olunaku mulindwa lwe twabadde tulindirira ebivuddeyo byebyo. Njagala ate mbatwale mu session enamba eya European Union Parliament nga bongera okubaganya empawa ku Uganda n'engeri ki gye bagenda okuteekawo amateeka amakakali ku gavumenti ya Uganda. Omuntu aliyo yaligambye nti tufunamu ki European Union Parliament bwegaana ebyava mu kulonda. Bino wammanga enjagala okunokolerayo. 1. Okulangirirwa n'okulondebwa bya njawulo kwogatta n'okubeera recognized nagwo mulamwa mulala. Generali Yoweri Kaguta Tibahabulwa egoye yamupushinga n'emukaka okwerangirira era n'okulayira kyangu nnyo okulayira n'okukuumibwa nga ye president wa Uganda n'afuna recognition n'ayingira ne mu bitabo nti ye president wa Uganda omulonde kyawukanako ku kulangirirwa n'okulayira. Buli wobeera nga omiddwa legitimacy amawanga gakirimaanyi yagalagaana obalirwanga omuyeekera newankubadde nga oyitidde mu mbeera ey'akalulu bw'otateekateeka kalulu kapya kali free and fair. Amawanga gano kike gatera okukola? Go gavaayo ne gajjayo obuwaayiro mu ndagaano yaago eya Vienna Convention. Bwe gajjayo obuwaayiro mu ndagaano yaago eya Vienna Convention ne galaba nga watyobodde amateeka gonna endagaano yaago gagikompeyaringa ne constitution y'eggwanga lyo nti constitution ya Uganda eraga ki? Nti military terina kwenyigira mu kulonda. Ba political prisoner tebalina kuwera oba kukwatibwa kubanga Uganda ya bibiina bingi eby'obufuzi. Kati gwe bw'olabikira mu mbeera nti okutte ba political prisoner abawerako ate n'obawalawala n'obatwala mu kooti masho already oba okontanye n'ekyo ekiri mu mateeka ag'eggwanga Uganda kwogatta n'okulinyirira n'okutyobola kw'eddembe ly'obuntu awo okontaganira n'amateeka ge mwateekako omukono mu Vienna Convention. Byonna generali abimenye n'ayitawo. Takomye okwo, mutabani we najja ne ku mikutu emigatta abantu neyewaana okutirimbula n'okutemula abo abali mu NUP. Takomye okwo, najja yewaana n'agamba nti by 2030 wetunayingirira omwaka 2030 mu National Unity Platform muli ginoonya nga temulinawe mugiraba. Bino nno yabyogera naye yandifundikira nga ebigambo bye yabyogera kifuula nnenge ng'ewali NUP teekawo NRM nti by 2030 toyina wojja kuwulira kigambo NRM by 2030. Yembeera eri mu ggwanga lyattu Uganda. Njagala batwala mu session eno nayo tugifune ate ndyoke nkomewo nga bulijjo tutambula ne Sheikh Ashraf omunombi w'edduwa. Onoonyeeko ku namba ye weryawo gwe nayina embeera moyite etali nnungi akulombera eddwa embeera ejja kubeera ng'ate efuuka malidaadi. Baganda bange nyongera kubagumya bugumya eri abo baweddemu amaanyi kwogatta nate n'okubakubira omulanga ogutakungula. Muyimirire wamu naffe mu buwombeefu obw'ekitalo mu buli mbeera yonna mutuyambeko olutabaalo luno okwongera okulupushinga. Obwetaavu bukyaliwo, tukyali mu kuyaayaana, tukyali mu kuyagga okulaba nti twongera okubunya enjiri eno ey'enkyukakyuka. N'olwekyo akatono konna k'olina, amaanyi gonna g'olina gakola kinene nnyo okutuyambako okuvvuunuka n'okwanguya emirimu gino okubeera nga gitambula bukwakku. Gwe wenna yali yagadde otugattako emotionally, gwe wenna yali yagadde otugattako financially, gwe wenna yali yagadde otugattako psychologically, yita ku namba ku mukono ogwa ddyo ojja kubeera ng'ate onfuna bulambalamba. Waliwo ennamba 2 londako emu ojja kubeera ng'ate tuwaya bulambalamba ate tukwatagane okwongerayo eggwanga lyaffe. We twogerera olutambi lwongedde okukyuka each and every day. Nabagamba nti Generali Yoweri Kaguta Tibahaburwa bwe bamumma legitimacy yeyebe entandikwa ey'olutabaalo luno kati European Union yo ekigadde. European Union yo ekigadde tewakyali kulanga kulala embeera bwetyo bwegifundikidde. Katugende mu session eno abankuumire atakuumira mpeera. Bino bibadde mu Parliament ya European Union.
Commissioner, I have received 2 motions for resolution to wind up this joint debate. The debate is closed and the vote will be held tomorrow. The next item on the agenda is debates on cases of breaches of human rights, democracy and the rule of law. Next debate on the agenda is post-election situation in Uganda and threats against opposition leader Bobi Wine. My first speaker is uno de los autores, el señor.
Muchas gracias, President.
Thank you very much, President.
In Uganda, the full subversion of democratic standards, abuse, severe restrictions on civic space, widespread intimidation of opposition figures, fraud, violence, and a nationwide internet blackout. How is it possible that the main opposition candidate, Mr. Bobi Wine, could have been sieged by the military in his house and his family and his wife assaulted by government forces? All of this to guarantee a seventh term in office of Yoweri Museveni. It is just unacceptable and Europe cannot accept this. I must thank all the political groups that we have convened and made a consensus about this. This is, of course, not just about Uganda. It's about supporting the hundreds of millions of Africans who seek freedom, who seek the right for their voices to be heard, who seek their fight for progress and dignity, but are not allowed to do so through violence and oppression. For decades, this European Union has been engaging with our African partners to try to support free and fair elections. I have myself participated in electoral observations on the continent, and I am very much aware of the challenges. But we need to do more. We have the means to do more, because today it is Bobi Wine in Uganda. Last year it was Tundu Lissu in Tanzania. And next year it might be Alberto Costa Jr. in Angola. Opposition leaders are being persecuted, elections are being stolen, and we cannot allow, as Europeans, continually to close our eyes, and especially our governments who are making economical dealings with the government of Uganda. Commissioner, the Council has to hear high voice and the opinion of this Parliament about these very tragic circumstances that are happening in Uganda. Thank you very much.
Señor López Istúriz, my second speaker is another author, Mr. Hayde.
Thank you, Chair. Dear Commissioner, ahead of the elections, Bobi Wine was cheered by tens of thousands of Ugandan voters wherever he appeared in the country. Now, after the elections, he is under siege, and tens of thousands of citizens took the streets, this time in protest. The post-election situation in Uganda shows a systematic assault on fundamental rights. President Museveni's 7th term followed elections that failed to meet democratic standards, preceded and followed by mass arrests, violence, attacks on journalists, the shutdown of civil society, an internet blackout and killings of unarmed civilians. The harassment of Bobi Wine, his family and members of the National Unity Platform is unacceptable. The European Union must act consistently to end immediately all violence, threats and the arbitrary detention of opposition politicians and their supporters. We must review our cooperation with Uganda and firmly support civil society, journalists, human rights and LGBTIQ+ defenders, as well as the democratic opposition.
Mr. Hayde. Mr. Otgen is as well an author.
Thank you, President, Commissioner, colleagues. What happened on January 15th in Uganda, the so-called elections, were not an election. They were a military operation, and the facts confirm it. Soldiers acting on direct government orders raided the home of opposition leader Bobi Wine, assaulted his family and forced the family into exile. Opposition supporters were arrested, disappeared or were killed, including Ekakasiza, who was fatally shot while attending a peaceful rally. We are deeply alarmed by reports that the regime has publicly threatened to kill opposition leader Bobi Wine. All these are not isolated incidents. They are acts of terror which are meant to silence an entire opposition. We call for the immediate and unconditional release of all political prisoners, an end to military trial of civilians, full accountability for the crimes committed and a real electoral reform. Today, we as European Parliament say clearly, we stand with Bobi Wine, Uganda's opposition and civil society, and all those who risk everything to demand freedom. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear colleague. Mr. Fröhlich is an author as well.
Herr Präsident.
Thank you, President. Idi Amin, former dictator of Uganda, said that he can't guarantee free speech. Critics of the of what's been happening in Uganda really can show that Uganda is an example of a post-colonial area. The opposition is suppressed, and between 2020 and 2024, millions of euros were spent to ensure governance in Uganda. This has led to reactions, and in the end, this is just wasted money. We should focus development policy on economic growth and infrastructure, not just on exports. That will give us access to resources. It's a win-win situation. That's the best way of dealing with it. Thank you.
We jump into the second part on behalf of the EPP group, Mr. Schenk.
Herr Präsident, liebe
President, colleagues. Well, to talk about Uganda is uncomfortable, but to turn a blind eye is irresponsible. What we say, or what we don't say, is important. Uganda is in a situation which we cannot possibly ignore. We're talking about citizens who suffer from violence, media that are not allowed to do their work, opposition with a very narrow and ever narrowing political area. So the elections have been characterized by imprisonment and also the removal of the internet, and Bobi Wine, who's had to go into hiding. This is a violation of basic principles. We in the Union want to have partnerships based on human dignity, on freedom, and on the rule of law. Our message, therefore, is absolutely indispensable. We stand on the side of the people of Uganda, not on the side of political repression. Power without legitimacy is fragile. Stability with no freedom is fragile too. So we need to make sure that we protect human rights. Thank you.
Mr. Bullman, you have the floor on behalf of the Socialists and Democrats group.
Herr Präsident, Frau
President, Commissioner, please allow me to read a social media post, to quote it.
22 NUP terrorists since last week. NUP steht für National Unity.
NUP is the National Unity Platform. That's the opposition party. I continue to quote.
The 23rd is Kabobi. Kabobi steht für Bobi Wine.
Kabobi is Bobi Wine, the leader of the opposition and the candidate for the presidency. That quote is from the son of the president. He's also head of the Ugandan army. The post has now been removed. Apparently, because they fear an international reaction. I'm in favour of offering money to strengthen democracy. I'm in favour of protecting human rights through our cooperation. But this is completely unfair, what is happening, and I'm waiting for action from the Commission and the Council. The European Parliament is not going to let this go.
My next speaker on behalf of the ESN group is Mr. Siwakulayila.
Thank you, Chair, ladies and gentlemen. 40 years is a long time, and 40 years ago the world was completely different. Diego Maradona was the best football player. Margaret Thatcher was the ruling person in the UK. Uganda has had the same president all the time, so no surprise people want changes. But for the 40 years, the president of Uganda did not change either. He rules with the same methods all the time. And this shows the divergence between what we're talking here, where we condemn the behavior of authorities, and that we make business with Uganda. So here there is this discrepancy, because on the one hand we talk about it and indeed we invest there, and we have a policy which should be realpolitik, that is, we focused on business and raw materials. The violence obviously has a very dark side to it, and we should condemn what's happening there. On the other hand, foreign policy should be about caring about our own interest. Thank you.
Much, dear colleague. I have 3 requests for the catch the eye. First one is Mr. Stier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, the situation in Uganda is not only a problem for Bobi Wine. Of course, it is for him and his family. It's not only a problem for Uganda, for the country. We've seen that last year in Tanzania. We are fortunately seeing that in other parts of Africa. But this is also a failure for us. It's a failure of our development cooperation policy. Because I will remind that in the UN, SDGs, the 16th SDG is about good governance, and this is exactly what is lacking, for example, in Uganda. And then we are thinking, why is the case that for every euro that we are sending in our development cooperation, there are 10 times more euros that are evaporating in corruption in these countries. This is because there is no accountability, because the opposition is treated in that way, because we have presidents that are in the 7th mandate without any checks and balances. This is a failure also of our development cooperation policy. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, señor Stier. Señor López Aguilar.
Dear Chair, President, González Pons, Commissioner, more than 10 years ago, my first mandate is this European Parliament. I was a member of a EU electoral observation mission to Uganda, a country long tormented by oppressive, brutal regimes. Museveni was elected. So many years after, Museveni is still in place, but democracy has been eroded, human rights continue to be violated. I had the opportunity to check the importance and the weight of EU diplomacy on the spot in Uganda. So it summed up with the embassies of the member states, and still we're still powerless in order to make the right point to bring about fair, credible elections in Uganda. Insofar, there is something we can do. It's make the case for human rights violated of the leaders of the opposition, so that the European message is still heard in Kampala, in Uganda, and all over the place, that we do care about those leaders of the opposition which are so unfairly prosecuted against. So please, Commissioner, take the message. Action is needed in Uganda, Kampala. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, señor López Aguilar. Mr. Tinkinen, seat 210.
Mr. President, Uganda's president, who has been in power for more than 40 years, has placed the only credible opposition candidate under house arrest. 40 years in power, and challengers are put under house arrest. This is not democracy, it is criminal. Now listen to what the EU's official policy is at the same time regarding its support for Uganda. The EU cooperates with Uganda to promote the country's green transition, support sustainable and inclusive job creation and investment growth, and strengthen democratic governance that advances social inclusion and human rights. It seems the support policy has not been very successful. The EU must now decide whether we want to continue financing these regimes that laugh at our declarations with gold teeth flashing, or is it time to adopt a new mantra for development aid as well? Here we draw the line. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear colleague. Madam Commissioner, you have the floor.
Honourable members, the European Union, through its delegation in Kampala and locally represented European Union member states, have been following closely the run-up to and the elections on January 15, 2026. These engagements included meetings with all political parties, including with the National Unity Platform, as well as with electoral bodies and with government and the leadership of the Ugandan People's Defence Forces. An EU-funded project focused on electoral violence prevention called Let's Talk Peace was launched ahead of the campaign, which was welcomed by stakeholders across political lines. A diplomatic watch by the EU delegation was carried out on election day, and the spokesperson of the European External Action Service issued a statement after the announcement of the results. As mentioned in the statement, we share the findings of the preliminary statement of the African Union COMESA IGAD Joint Observation Mission as regards the involvement of the military in the electoral process, which is contrary to the Ugandan 1995 constitution. Furthermore, the internet shutdown implemented 2 days before the elections clearly limited access to information and freedom of association. We are also very concerned with the arbitrary arrests and suspension of numerous civil society organisations ahead of the elections. We call for investigations and accountability following the reports of death, violence and detentions of opposition politicians and human rights defenders, as well as for clarification of the current situation of Bobi Wine in particular. We call on all political actors to exercise restraint, to refrain from violence or incitement. The EU, despite the current challenges, will continue engagement with Uganda on a broad-based agenda based on shared interest and mutual respect, including on trade, critical raw materials. Our cooperation and humanitarian programmes promote a Team Europe approach, exploring opportunities for transformative projects, including under the Global Gateway. At the same time, the EU, through an open dialogue with Ugandan authorities, will continue to advocate for the respect of human rights and democratic principles and to follow up on anti-discrimination measures. The EU will continue to stand by civil society organisations and support them in line with their needs and our values and principles.
Thank you very much, Madam Commissioner. The debate is now closed. I have received 5 motions for resolution. They will be held tomorrow. The vote will be held tomorrow. Sorry. Next debate on the agenda is